So the new album, GLOOM Division, by I Don't Know How But They Found Me, dropped recently, and I decided to take it upon myself to review every single song individually and kind of give my thoughts on it, uh, possibly recommend it to you, and just overall share my opinions and thoughts on the album. Now, originally going into this album, I was a bit skeptical because this is the first solo album released by this band after the drummer Ryan Seaman uh, recently left over what is only described as trust issues or broken trust. I'm not sure which side did that, but who knows at this point. And the reason for that sort of skepticism is because the lead singer, or now the person who is a part of the solo project, used to be in Panic at the Disco, which, as you may know, nowadays is pretty much a solo project and kind of has sort of fallen off a little from what it used to be, especially aesthetically. However, skepticism aside, I will say up front that I do think this is a pretty good album and I do enjoy it. I will go into a little bit more about that as I start breaking down the songs. What songs I didn't really prefer that much, but um, overall, I think it is a good, solid album. And if you, for some reason, despite clicking on this video, want to form your own thoughts, I highly recommend going and listening to the album. I will have both linked down in the description of the Spotify link and YouTube link of the sort of playlist that the band created. And feel free to come back after. Now, before getting started, I'd like to talk about the album cover, just because I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough when discussing albums. I will say I quite like the album cover. It kind of reminds me of those sort of source engine default maps or untextured maps, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, solid album cover. I'd say I'd give the album cover like an 8 to a 9 out of 10. I also just think it would look really cool on like a vinyl to just have somewhere. I'd like to say before I get into it as well, I listened to the album 3 times before at least starting this video, just because I feel like in order to fully grasp and understand my thoughts on an album, I need to listen to it 3 times over. And the reason for that is, for example, you can listen to its song, and the first time you listen to it can be like the best time you've ever heard it, and then after all that, it kind of falls off a little bit, or it can be the complete opposite, where the first time you listen to it, it's the worst, but after you kind of listen to it more, you sort of appreciate it more. That's kind of the frame of reference I'm going in, and also between recording, each individual song review, I do go back and sort of listen to them, just so I can sort of gather my thoughts again and see if my opinions still hold up while making this video. With that all being said, let's get into the first song of the album, titled Downside. This one, upon first listening to it at least, I was a little bit like, on. I didn't like the sort of like gloomy voice he kind of did at the beginning of the song, and then when it transitioned to the rest of the song, it was fine, but the sort of upbeat yet gloomy rock of it kind of didn't sit right with me at the time. After re-listening to it, however, I do find that I like the song a lot more than I thought. The sort of gloomy voice that he does doesn't become much of a problem on repeat listen. The song has a very sort of pop rock, and pop rock sound to it. It's sort of upbeat. It's got like the stereotypical clapping in the background. It very much sounds like a song you would sort of hear at a roller skating rink, or like almost a like sort of mid 2000s memory camera compilation, if that makes sense, like memorabilia sort of footage of like a 2006 party, like a middle school party or something like that. That's kind of the aesthetic I get from it. That is probably my only complaint about the song, is it does kind of sound like something I've heard a couple times before. Now, that's not a bad thing per se. I'm sure that might have even been the idea of it going into it. That's just kind of the feel I get from it. Overall, though, the more I think about it, I do think it is a pretty good song. It's a song that I wouldn't mind listening to multiple times, especially if I had to or something like that. The subject matter of the song is pretty interesting, and like listening to the lyrics is engaging enough. And overall, I'd say the song is a good 7.5 out of 10 on its own. The next song on the album is "Gloom Town Brats," which is a single that they released a little bit earlier in the year as, promotion for the album. So I'm a little bit more familiar with this song than, of course, the rest going into it. So after having already heard it a couple times, I can safely say it is still a good song. It is very much like a lot of the rest of their discography in terms of sound and aesthetic and sort of vocal performance. So this is very much a song that if you like a lot of their previous old stuff, then you are definitely, or at least more likely, going to like this one other than some of the other tracks on the album. For example, like the one we just discussed. It's got the same kind of like weird humor that a lot of the other songs have in their discography, which I do like, and is something that makes me like the band a lot, especially with their other songs, which I might go back and review some other time if I really like what I did here. But yeah, personally, I really like this song. I think it's great. There's nothing really wrong with it that I can find, at least in my opinion. So I'd say it's either a 9.5 out of 10 or maybe even a 10. The next song on the album is the song "Infatuation," which was also released earlier this year as a single. This song, much like the previous song, I also really like. At first, when I first listened to it, I was a little kind of iffy on it because for me personally, I find like slower songs to be a little bit boring to me. I'm mainly like a metal fan myself, so usually like slower music kind of tends to bore me out just a little bit. But with this song, after the beginning, it really starts to pick up, not in terms of speed, but in terms of just quality. And I really like the sound that they go for it. The groove's really nice. The vocal performance, like always, is very good. I definitely like the song aesthetically as well. That really grew on me. Um, the nice, like, slow beat to it as well is very nice. The vocal peaks are actually pretty good. Sometimes when a vocalist will sort of peak their voice up pretty high for a certain, like, end to a chorus or something, I don't really like it that much. Sometimes it feels a little tacked on, but honestly, I really do like it in this song. I felt like it was actually a pretty nice touch, especially for at least what is apparent to me what they were going for. But yeah, much like the last song, this one is very good. Last song and this song, even if you don't want to listen to the whole album, I would recommend definitely listening to these as well if you want to kind of get an idea of just kind of what this band does and sort of their aesthetic and whole vibe that they go for. Hello, this is me in post. Old me forgot to record me saying that the song is a 9.5 out of 10 because I'm just stupid, I guess. But yeah, the song is a 9.5 out of 10. I don't know why I refused to give it a number before. The next song is the song "What Love" with a little question mark there at the end. This song was also released as a single earlier in the year, and it is the one out of the three singles on this album that I listened it to the least. The reason for that is because to me it sounds just a little bit generic. Kind of reminds me of like a Weeknd song, and I'm not really a big fan of the Weeknd. At least some of his older, like more popular stuff that popped off. I do think in terms of like objective quality, it's not a bad song, like not by a long shot. Like I wouldn't mind listening to it. It's just aesthetically wise and just sort of how it sounds is a little bit generic, a little bit boring to me. It's not something I personally rock with. It's a very slow, sort of upbeat song. In sort of contrast to what I said about the last song, the vocal peak in this one does kind of rub me off the wrong way. I just didn't like it. I did feel it was very like tacked on and kind of done to be like, here's just a quick little impressive part right in your face. I didn't really like that all that much. It also does one thing near the end that I kind of don't really like in songs sometimes, and that is just kind of layering everything on top of each other, like some of the vocals overlapping each other, along with the background tracks sort of overlapping each other to sort of fade it to the end. I don't really usually like that in songs. I think it's just too much ear pollution, just too much noise all at once. I feel like it kind of ruins the vibe, especially with this song where it's supposed to sort of have a more consistent flow and kind of just be a bit easier to listen to, at least that's what I think. But overall, it's not a bad song, not by a long shot. I'd say it's probably like 6.5 out of 10 for me. Not bad, but not really something I would prefer listening to. The next song on the album is SPKOTHDVL. This song is a very different sounding song for this band, which is kind of funny considering one of the lyrics in the song says it doesn't sound like them. So I think that's kind of funny. The sort of guitar riff in the song that kind of repeats over it is very like classic American rock sounding. Think like ZZ Top. And that's kind of the sound that it kind of provides. And much like the guitar riff, it is a very more classic rock sounding song in a way. Of course, the band does put their own like spin on it. It does sound different enough. They very much bring in their own elements to this song. I do find myself quite enjoying this one though. I think it has a lot of replay value. I think there's a lot of just fun to be had listening to this song. It's not a particularly like fantastic song, but I do think it belongs on the album. I think it's just a very good song. Other than that, I don't have too much more to say, so I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. Maybe about like a 7.5, but I think 8's good. The next song on the album is the song 6 Feet. This song I quite like a lot, actually. Even if it is a bit more of a slower pace, I enjoy this song a lot. I like the sound of it a lot. The lyrics are pretty good. It's kind of their same sort of weird, dark, obscene sort of things that they like to talk about. I will say the line presented on screen right now is a little corny. I cannot lie. Like hearing that and whenever it comes up in the song, I kind of just, it's a little cringe, might I say. But yeah, it's a very nice song to just kind of chill out to, though. It's definitely one where I would put it in like a more relaxing playlist, weirdly enough, despite the subject matter about having someone be 6 feet underground, but I mean, other than that, it's just the band's usual, just solid, nice quality. Nothing really wrong with the song. It does do some things particularly great, I will say, so that does give it some bonus points. So I'm giving this one a 9.5 out of 10. I quite like it. It's sort of a mix of a sort of new sound for them while also retaining a lot of the old qualities and old sound in a very nice way, I'd say. I think it's a good blend of both. The next song is Find Me. Now, this song, it's quite interesting, I'd say. This is kind of where the album starts to take a sort of weird, different turn, I'd say. Before, I'd like to mention that the song has this sort of robotic auto-tune-ish voice that kind of goes throughout it. And normally this is something that kind of annoys me a little bit. Usually I don't really like that in songs. If I remember correctly, on the most recent Avenged Sevenfold album, they kind of had that as well. And I think it was mostly fine there. I think it overstayed its welcome a little bit too much. I would have liked them to sort of mixed in more regular vocals with that song. But I mean, reviewing that album is something for a different day. But with this song, it did not feel like it overstayed its welcome too much. I felt like it was a good balance. The tuning that they did on the voice did not sound bad at all. It didn't sound annoying or anything. I thought it was very well balanced, very well mixed. I will say sometimes the layering of things was a bit off. Like sometimes it just kind of sounded like too much was going on at once. Because like you had the main vocals, the robotic vocals, the background track, and then a track of sort of like robotic sounding stuff a little bit over it. And I thought that kind of was too much at once. Maybe my ears are just weird or something, but that was just my take on that. However, besides that, I do really like this song. I grew with it. I think it's nice. I think it's got a nice sound overall. Like I said, it is one of the few songs that does the robotic voice right. Only other one I can think of is like Daft Punk. They kind of did it like in Robot Rock. It was kind of cool. I think the only flaw, other than the layering at that one point, that the song has is it feels a little bit repetitive to me. Maybe it's just the robotic voice getting to me just a little bit, but I thought it was a little bit of a more repetitive song. But other than that, I think it is a solid song. I'm going to give it a 7.5. The next song is the song Kiss and Tell. This one I'm a bit more mixed on. I don't particularly find anything too wrong with it. It's more so it just isn't a song that really connects to me, like musically, lyrically. I just don't really rock with it that much. The song sounds kind of like at least a mix of ideas between Downside and What Love earlier on the album. So it's not poorly placed or anything because those almost in a way weird way kind of feel like build up to this one, but I just didn't particularly care too much for the aesthetic of this one. And some people might say, oh, it sounds fine, it sounds like the other ones, and that's a perfectly fine opinion to have. It's just this song, it sounded a little bit too much, a little bit too generic for me. Now granted, it's not like bad or anything, like I don't think most of the songs on this album are bad or anything like that. I just think that this song particularly just doesn't really do it for me. Much like the rest of their songs, like there's nothing wrong vocally, the vocals are all great. Instrumentally, all great. Everything's like perfectly fine. Everything is done extremely well. This one just didn't land for me. So I'm gonna make it a 6 out of 10. Maybe more like a 6.5 even. If you're someone who particularly likes maybe this particular kind of song, it might be more of like an 8 or a 9 for you. The next song on the album is the song A Letter, which lives up to my personal belief that every album got that one weird as hell song. This song is a sort of mix of what we've been kind of seeing instrumentally throughout the album. It has a bit more like storytelling in it. It has these sections where it's plain music, and then it's broken up by it's sort of slowing down, and then it's just a guy talking about writing a letter, doesn't know why you wrote the letter, all that kind of stuff. You can go find out the story for yourself. But then after that, it's just straight up music again, broken up by more talking and then music. It's a very experimental sounding song, mixed in with the sort of instrumentals that you've been kind of seeing earlier on the track, like I said before, or album I've been saying before. This one is one where I can't really find myself listening to it on repeat. It's a nice like experience for the first time, but after that it kind of is just like it's a little gimmicky, you know. So for that, I'm just gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's fine. I don't think it doesn't deserve to be on here, but it's not really a song I would ever listen to again. Maybe more of like a 5 out of 10 because of that. However, I think 6 out of 10 is better because I don't think it's bad. The next song is Satanic Panic, which this one I did quite like a lot more, especially compared to the previous one. I think it sounds pretty nice. The lyric, easy come, easy go, is a little bit generic, at least just because to me it just is a line I've heard a lot before. I think he does rectify that, though, by sort of rhyming it with a more twisted and dark lyric, which I think is something this band is very good at. The vocal peaks, like most of their songs, do not feel out of place. I feel like they're put in just the right spots. And I think they do sound nice, like always. The saxophone in the background, I do like. Sometimes it can be a little bit out of place sounding at times, but I don't feel like it was out of place throughout the entire song. This song is quite replayable, I would say. I think that has a lot of value to it in terms of just listening to it and then re-listening to it. I think it's a very fun song. I think it's a very interesting take on what it's going for. I think there's a whole lot more going for it than there is that kind of would lessen the song. I think overall it's just a nice song, and other than that, I don't really have too much to say about it. So I think I'm going to give it a 7.5 to an 8. When I first listened to it, I thought it would likely be my favorite on the album, but upon listening to some of the others on repeat and understanding them more, this is one of those songs where the first time you listen to it will probably be the best, as you kind of go on, it's not as great, but it's still good. The second to last song is Sunnyside featuring Will Joseph Cook. This song, um, I can't lie to you, to me it just kind of sounds like just an indie rock song. It's got that sort of upbeat nature to it, that upbeat sounding music with a more low toned vocal performance. To me, it's just kind of an indie rock song. I mean, I don't know what else to really say about it. It just kind of feels generic to me in that way. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that will absolutely love this song, and it'll be a great song to them, and they don't mind that kind of aesthetic. But to me, it just is an aesthetic, it's a sound that I've heard way too many times before. And I mean, I can't use that to sort of discredit this song because me personally hearing it a lot should not lower this as a song. And so I'm not going to use that in terms of my scoring, but I do think that it's just a sound that I do not really like all that much. That being said, I think it's a well-made song. Like I think everything's layered properly. I think the vocal performances are still good. I think the musical performances are still good. Like I don't think anything's wrong with that. It's just a sound, it's just a style that I do not like. I just don't find this kind of music appealing to me. I just kind of find the sound to be a bit boring. Like I don't mind the sound. I think if it was like on the car radio or if in any other situation I was ever like I just have to listen to it, I'd be completely fine. It's not something that I like hate with all the fiber of my being or anything like that. It's just not for me. I just don't particularly like it. So I'm going to give this one about a 6 out of 10. And the last song on the album is Idiots of Oz. This one I quite like. It is definitely one of my favorites on the album. I like the sound of it. I like the lyrics. I like quite a lot about it. I do think it kind of has some like weird random sound choices throughout the song that kind of feels like a little bit of whiplash here and there. I would also like to note that the decision to have car honking in the song is a little annoying just because on my first listen to it, I was listening to it in the car and in the song it goes "Buh, buh, 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 buh," like as if someone was honking at you multiple times. And I understand why, they bring up cars in the song and, idiots, oh, you honk at an idiot, right? Um, but it scared the hell out of me. So screw you for that. This song also does bring them back to sort of their roots in terms of the sound again, much like Gloomtown Brats, of course, which I personally like, being a fan of a lot of their previous stuff. But I really like the groove of this song. I love how it's structured. I really like the instrumentation on it. I love how it flows. I think that's all nice and great. Definitely out of the album, I would put this in my top 3. The other 2 would probably be Gloomtown Brats, 6 Feet, and Idiots of Oz, I would say is my top 3 songs. And then 4 being an Infatuation, I would say. But Idiots of Oz, I think, would be a solid 9 out of 10. But that's all the songs on the album. Overall, I think it's a solid album. I think it's definitely worth re-listening to. I've been humming the songs in my head all week. I think the album overall has some really nice highs and not too low of lows, if you can even call them lows. I just personally don't prefer those songs, but I don't think that they have no value or aren't worth listening to. Like, none of these songs would ever go into like a bad song list, I don't think. But I like the overall aesthetic of the song. I don't feel as if there's any songs on here that don't sound like they belong. I think they all feel very consistent with each other, even when capturing almost entirely different sounds. They still thematically and very aesthetically feel similar. Like there's always something connecting them, which is nice. And like listening to it to song, like from song to song, doesn't feel like daunting. Like I don't feel like I'm getting hit with a baseball bat switching songs. Overall, as the band's first solo project, I suppose, I think that this is very well done. I don't feel like they've lost anything musically. I think that some songs just go in a different direction that perhaps I was not expecting, or maybe I just didn't particularly care for all that much, but I don't think that those songs are bad in any way, or even of lesser quality, just not for me. But overall, I'd give this album a solid 8.5 out of 10. I highly recommend listening to it. If I do more music reviews in the future, I will always encourage you to go and support the artist. Definitely go listen to this album for yourself on any sort of official means, and support the artist. Let me know what you think of each song, maybe what your favorite one is, and all of that. I think it's important for you to go out and form your own opinion on this. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but I think that it's just important to share uh, music opinions and just be healthy about it overall. I think it's important to show the artist support and to form your own opinions on it, because for a song that maybe I didn't like so much, it might be your new favorite song. You might think it's a incredible direction and that the artist should go in that direction more. And it's perfectly fine. I think that having differing opinions about these things is totally normal, and I think that everyone should be willing to share their opinions on this. But other than that, I'd just like to say thank you for watching. Like I said earlier, let me know what you think of the album in the comments section, and also do recommend some more albums for me to review. I would much appreciate that. If you don't, that's fine. I'll just find some other album to review or something. But I would like to have this channel be something where I take other people's recommendations and review them, and not really stick to just current things. I think that I should have a platform where old music can be reviewed, lesser known music can be reviewed, and even newer stuff.